Hey y'all, it's old Jesse. Um, let's do Proverbs chapter 1, and I'm gonna cover a few verses here this morning because the last video went to verse 11, but this video kind of needs to cover an entire subject, and I'm gonna kind of sound like I'm on repeat or whatever, a little bit because it's all the same subject. It's just nuances and variations thereof. And it's kind of I won't say it's a deep subject, but it's one that needs talking about because it relates to uh, a lot of different human life. So, you know, what we're going to do is I'm going to read verses 11 through 19 and then talk about it. So starting in verse 11, and I know I'm backing up a verse, but it's better to back up a verse than end up with a problem. If they say, "Come with us, let us wait for blood, let us lurk privily for the innocent without cause. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave, and whole as those that go down into the pit. We shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Cast in thy lot among us. Let us all have one purse. My son, walk thou not in the way with them. Refrain thy foot from their path. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird, and they lay wait for their own blood. They lurk privily for their own lives. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof." Okay. That's a lot of words for about the deviousness of humanity, about the cruelty of humanity, about mob mentality, about gang mentality, about folks that just get joy out of evil. Okay, and sometimes you might say, like when I say that, you might see a smile on my face. Get joy out of evil, yee. But like that comes from, I grew up in a bad neighborhood. Okay, and I was picked on a lot, and I picked on other people a lot, and so I can remember the childish glee that I got from hurting somebody else, and it's like, yee, there's that little joyful like hee 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 hee, like, and it's not really like it's not a kind thought, and it's short-term glee because it usually happens that as soon as you feel that little bit of joy, something bad happens within seconds or minutes. And some of those consequences from that type of behavior can last a lifetime, or can end with your death. So, all right, the verse by verse. If they come with us, let us lay wait for blood. Let us look privily for the innocent without cause. We covered that in the last video. Don't do it. Let us swallow them up alive as the grave. And if I'm not mistaken, that grave there is Sheol in the Hebrew. It's the same word as hell. Okay? Now, in the Hebrew, Sheol means the grave. Because of Christianity and the way it's been sensationalized over millennia, okay, the grave is very much the grave. It's anywhere a person is buried. It can even include the water. All right. Typically, what's when you find the definition of grave or Sheol, it is a cold, possibly damp or wet burial place in the earth. But that word in Hebrew in the Old Testament is used for anywhere a person is buried. So just consider that. And whole as they go down unto the pit. And that going down unto the pit, that is definitely a grave. When you put a coffin in the ground, when you put a body in the ground, you dig a pit first. That's the pit that it's talking about. It's not talking about some supernatural pit or anything like that. This is specifically like, let's swallow them up like the grave so there ain't nothing left. We get everything. And that thought of swallowing a person's substance whole to their complete destruction, even their life, that is, I hate to say this, it's a common American business practice. You find that in a lot of rich families, they fight over money. Like, they really fight over money. Us poor folks fight over money a little bit, but it's nothing like the folks at the top that they want to kill somebody just because, well, that person accumulated a lot of wealth. And they want all that inheritance or all the business. And, well, that's a very human greed thing. And with it comes just, a lot of spite and maliciousness and envy and jealousy and all that stuff. So it's pretty bad. It's a pretty bad viewpoint. Verse 13, we shall find all precious substance. We shall fill our houses with spoil. Okay, so that verse there, it's something that folks that are destroying somebody, that's what they say. They're like, so what? Get you some of this. We'll all get some and we'll split it or we'll keep it or whatever, and we'll take everything. We're going to find everything, every last little bit, and keep it. Okay? The problem is, in reality, when a person goes through destruction by other people, what happens is the things that they have are destroyed. And their management system that produces the goods that they have is destroyed and not replaced. So instead of a cumulative value that person has, that they're generating value, you destroy the value generation by destroying the person. And when you go after all the precious substance and fill your house with spoil, you're getting a one-time deal out of it. And it's not very valuable. Okay? And the person's life value is worth by far and away more than the destruction value. So that's the downfall of verse 13. Cast in thy lot among us, let us all have one purse. Now that right there, if you're running with a dangerous crowd, that's the stupidest thing you could ever do. They're going to say stuff like that to naive people because they're like, well, we'll just stab them in the back later. We're going to get all this loot and we'll split it up later. Nope. No. It doesn't happen like that. You get that loot, keep it to yourself. Okay? But the whole thing is that's a typical, like, when you look through bank robbery stories or murder stories where people are murdering for money, they're like, well, we'll do this and then we'll figure out how to deal with it later. And what they really mean is, we're going to fight and kill this person and ruin this person's life. And then we're going to see how much we can fight each other for what's left over. Okay? So if you get involved with these bad crowds, it's not just the bad crowd that the bad human beings that are destroying an innocent person, but the bad crowd goes after itself afterwards. And anybody naive enough to stay close to that is going to get hurt. Like anybody, even if they're just peripheral or like, whatever, So the smartest thing you can do is tell them no. Like in verse 10, my son, if sinners entice thee, consent thou not. You just tell them no to begin with. Or at any other time where you think it's a possibility of getting out, even if you're going to get hurt getting out, it's better to get hurt a little bit than lose your own life. And I've been in situations like that, and I'm like, I want out, So it's not really worth it. In verse 15, my son, walk not thou in the way with them, refrain thy foot from their path. That means don't go outside and hang out with them if you're young. Don't go over to their house and hang out with them as friends. Don't go to where they're going to hang out. Don't go near them, is basically what it's saying. Don't go near them. Don't be near them. Don't do anything with them. And in fact, I would suggest run the opposite direction, because you don't want to be anywhere near it. For their feet run to evil and make haste to shed blood. Okay, these type of folks will be lazy, and then when it's time to do something, all of a sudden they get quick. You watch how gangs operate in their turf wars. They'll sit there on the porch hanging out, drinking beer, smoking joints, doing drugs, whatever, hanging out in the house. And then when somebody comes in their turf, all of a sudden they're fast. They're over there. They're on it quicker than you can think. And that's a very simplistic version. These things are done in business too, in the stock market. Sometimes there'll be a number of businessmen that want to, make a stock go south, so they manipulate the market a little bit, and boom, prices plummet, so they can do, a company takeover or what have you. And that's kind of the same thing, and it usually takes more than one. And when it starts to happen, it's fast. It's really fast. It happens fast. So be careful of these things, and especially be careful of those that make haste to shed blood. Okay? Because the value of a human life, even if that person is not completely kind, is much greater than the value of a human dead. Okay? What I mean by that is, okay, even though nowadays we have the healthcare system, and there's human trafficking, like really bad, like dead body parts, human trafficking stuff that goes on. I would suggest that even with that numerical value, that dollar value, a human life far exceeds it, because you don't know if that person is going to just be a normal lower class person, a middle class person, or going to become fabulously wealthy, or what ideas they're going to introduce into humanity to make humanity a good place. You don't know what social impact they're going to have. You don't know what environmental impact they're going to have. You don't know their creative value. And human potential is something that is it has more, even the horrible, like, terrible, mean, drunk bum on the street has more human potential and value than you think, than what their basically body weight value is. Like what they're, and so when we as human beings attempt to destroy another person just for sheer joy or glee or what have you, you're destroying societal potential. And even that, if that potential is a little bit on the bad side, it's especially if that person is innocent of having done anything, right? Because societal potential goes up and down with a person's activities. If you murder somebody, your societal potential went way down. If you stole from somebody, your societal potential went down. So, like, if you chart societal potential in what you're contributing to society, the innocent person has more societal potential than anybody else. Somebody that has either served their God, served Yahweh Hich, has vastly more societal potential than somebody that hasn't. Somebody that is innocent of wrongdoing has no societal negatives. So they have way more potential than somebody that has done bad things. So think about that. Surely in vain the net is spread in the sight of any bird. All that means is folks can see it coming. Okay? Just because you think you're being sneaky and you think you're going to hoodwink somebody into a trap or die, doesn't mean that there's not, that the bird, that the one getting trapped doesn't know it. And if the one that's getting trapped knows it, and they talk, and that happens a lot, well then, law enforcement, then you've got vigilantes, and most importantly, if they pray to Yahweh Hich and he chooses to do something, well then, you're not going to have a very good life, So, and you're not going to get away with it for very long. And they lay wait for their own blood. Their own blood. It's talking about folks that will not only kill the innocent, but they'll kill their own grandmother, their own grandfather, their own children, their own wife, and they lurk privily for their own lives. Okay? They lurk privily for their own lives. So that comes back to not just their own family, but their own group members. Okay? Folks that go after innocent blood, that try to ruin a person, will end up biting and devouring each other in the end, after the spoils are spoiled. That's what we were talking about before. And a lot of times, yeah, they go after their own family members and everything else over money, and like, hey, there's some nasty human beings out there, and if you let that overtake yourself and you become like that, well, Yahweh Hich designed the world, and that design is such that folks that are like this ruin themselves because they cannot control their urges at all. And when you can't control destructive urges, well, other human beings notice. They notice very quickly. And, usually that ends up with jail time, or somebody finds out about what you're doing and murders you or kills you. And that's it's just a true statement, like that's the way the world is, righteousness to the righteous, justice to the righteous, and destruction to the wicked. That's, that's taught in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. It's taught in the Bible in multiple places. It's what folks call karma, but I'm not a pagan and I don't believe in karma as that. So my perspective on that is, if you're going to be evil and nasty and wicked and cruel and blah, 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 go play a video game on the internet. Okay? Keep it out of real life. Because if you find that you have uncontrollable tendencies like that in the real life, in the real world, it's inevitable that you destroy yourself. And this is kind advice to folks that maybe aren't so good of human beings. And there's not really like a better way to do that. Go find healthy competition somewhere. Go learn how to play cards. Go get involved with productive business. If you like hurting people, go be a soldier. That's what they do for a living. It takes somebody that's very self-controlled to be a law officer. So that probably isn't a good idea. And I don't really know what else to say about that. It's once a person is involved with a bad community, it's hard enough to say I'm not interested in getting out. Okay? Sometimes what a person needs to do is change their identity, drop their cell phone, drop their email address, walk away, go live in the woods for a couple years, and pretend like that time in their life never happened. Okay? It's not a thing that a person will be successful in doing in the long term if they've already committed a lot of this bad stuff. That's just a solution for those that are trying to get out of a bad situation. Sometimes you have to run away from it. You have to move. And there's no better solution than that. Sometimes, and I've heard of folks moving across the world. Well, do what you have to do. Do whatever you got to do. But at the same time, just remember that the internet it's a very good tool, but also a very dangerous tool these days. Because the internet is the eyes and ears of the world now. Okay? And it contains quite a lot of information about a lot of folks. So be careful how deep you get involved with bad people. Because there's bad people that will disappear you faster than you can think. Right? But at the same time, the internet has eyes and ears, and like it depends on who's using them, right? So just be careful, be watchful, think about these things. So are the ways of everyone that is greedy of gain, which taketh away the life of the owners thereof. Now think about that. What are they greedy for? They're greedy of gain. What are they gaining? I don't know. Money? Goods, services? Human body parts? What are they gaining? You know, it could be anything that they're greedy for. And they lay wait for the life of the owners, you know? And we're not talking about simple thieves here. We're talking about like sure enough, murder and thieving folks, you know? And that kind of thing is that type of person usually lives a short, painful life with short moments of extreme joy when they get one over on somebody else, and lots of pain in between, whether that be emotional or fear, oftentimes. So from verse 10, if you consent thou not to that, that means you're not consenting to all the other horrible things that come with it. And I've got to say, there's something to be said for that, because knowing when to stay out of trouble and who to stay out of trouble with, it is wise. That is knowledge, that is understanding. So just consider what I'm saying. Think about it. If you like what I had to say, give it the old thumbs up and subscribe. All right, y'all. Have a good one.